Good morning. This is totally unscripted. I just got off a Zoom call with a journalist out of London who's doing another big write up about my story and just kind of wanted to come on here and share my thoughts. If you're new to me, my name is Jenny. This is Life Take Two, and I'm called Life Take Two for so many reasons. I had this big, beautiful life that I had built for 44 years, and it was all taken away from me when my ex-husband abandoned our family and our marriage collapsed. Also, I have gone through several medical scares where I literally had a near-death experience and I'm still here. But here's where I originally came up with the name. Just in the weeks following my divorce, when I realized that because I had been a stay-at-home mom with no job skills, no education, no investment in the businesses, no ownership in our homes or anything, that to escape domestic violence, I was going to lose everything, not just the husband that I'd been with for 24 years and the kids initially and my pet and all of those things, but also my home, my vehicle, my cell phone, the food in the fridge, everything that I had in life came from him. And in order for me to get away from him, that would mean losing everything. I was also in the middle of a faith transition. So within just a couple of weeks of the marriage ending, I had lost my faith in the Mormon church that I had been part of for 44 years. And the whole world just collapsed around me. And then when I woke up in the hospital and I was still here, I realized that if I was going to get my feet back under me and move forward at all, that I would have to just throw away that whole first act and move forward in my life in a way that was going to be very unfamiliar, uncharted territory, and that in every way I was going to have to be a trailblazer, making a path very different than anything that I'd ever walked before. And as I was walking through all of this stuff, I had a couple of other friends and family members who had been these traditional Mormon stay-at-home moms whose marriages were also collapsing, who were just as poverty-stricken, just as disoriented, just as depressed as I was. And I looked around and I thought, nobody even realizes that this is happening. In many ways, on the outside, everything looked okay with me. I was still driving around in a Mercedes. Nobody knew that I couldn't afford to make that payment, that I couldn't afford to put gas in it, and that Jake wasn't helping with that. I still had a closet full of relatively nice clothes. I still had beautiful furniture and, white, straight teeth and all of the things that made me look like everything was okay. Most people didn't realize the absolute financial distress that I was in and the emotional pain that I was suffering with. I also think that most people assumed that alimony and child support. People don't realize that there's this big gap from the time that the marriage collapses until the court enforces anything. And the only way that gap is filled is if you just happen to have money in the bank that you have access to, or you have an ex-husband who's kind enough to make sure that things are taken care of. I had neither of those. So I had 10 months of zero income where I was eating out of food pantries, would eventually be evicted from my home. But because I had been this Mormon trad wife, all people saw on the outside was the Lululemon leggings and the designer purse and the Mercedes. And it was very difficult to walk through that time feeling so desperate while people thought that I was so okay. So one day I was on the phone with one of my girlfriends who was also going through all this and had lost everything. And I said, why don't we start a little divorce care podcast so that we can kind of process through this? And I went and took some iTunes training classes on how to put up a podcast. And laying in bed one night, I thought, I've lost my whole life. I've totally started over. It's like Ron Howard yelling, life take two. Like I literally woke up after being unconscious in the hospital to a whole new life. So I should be life take two because this is it. This is the second half of my life and I don't know where it's going to go yet. So as I've gone through this journey of escaping domestic violence, escaping Mormonism, and rebuilding my life, recovering from very thankfully an unsuccessful attempt to take my life, I have journaled it on my little podcast and in my actual like journal and on my TikTok and my YouTube, magazine articles, my Substack, interviews, podcasts around the world for the past 6 years. And there are days that I wake up and I think, why am I doing this? It's so hard. Um, you always assume that if somebody's on social media, that they're big and bold and they're fine with being out there in the public. Um, I am one of the shyest people in the entire world, partly because I spent 24 years in domestic violence and had a very problematic childhood. And I have trauma on top of kind of a shy, timid, introverted personality. So there are days that it truly takes everything that I have in me to put on my little microphone, turn on my camera, and tell one more story about my life. One example of this that I always just am amazed that I even did this video is the video in my car in the red flannel. I had made a commitment that year that I was going to journal. Here's what it looks like after trad wife life. I'm 2 years out, 2.5 years out, 3 years out, 3.5 years out. This is just a day in the life of an ex trad wife. Things that are going on, me doing my furniture flipping in 110 degrees so that I can make $300 so that I can pay my car payment. And that night I got to the grocery store. I believe I thought I had $60 in the bank account. I clicked on my bank account from the Trader Joe's parking lot. It was only $20, and I knew that I couldn't afford to buy the groceries for my kids that I needed to buy that night. You guys, this was just less than 2 years ago. So at first I'd actually gotten out of my car and I was walking into Trader Joe's, but I was crying and I'm like, I'm just going to sit in my car for a minute. So I went back in and it's like, I have to journal this. I have to document this. So I turned on my TikTok and I'm like, here I am sitting in my car. I thought I had $60. I only have $20. We have a loaf of moldy bread at home, hardly anything in the fridge. Please don't be a stay-at-home mom. Young women, listen to me. You're going to destroy your life. Not only did I have a flood of TikTok followers who helped with a GoFund that would repair the car that I was sitting in that was broken, help me buy some groceries, help buy a laptop so that my daughter could go to college and help break this cycle, and other things helped pay my rent that month. But that also opened doors that are still providing a moderate income for me today and helping to get my message out there to the world. So every day when I grapple with why is this very shy person who doesn't like her private life out there? Why am I doing one more video? Here's my why. I, in the course of these past several years, have heard from thousands upon thousands upon thousands of other women whose voices and stories cannot be told. I have one such woman in my life who's no longer alive. Her life was ended by her intimate partner. Every time I tell my story, it's not just my story. It is the story of the women in these abusive relationships with men who hate us, stuck in our homes with unpaid labor, who maybe that works out, but maybe it ends with these later in life divorces that leave them financially destitute, going back to college when they have college kids scrambling in minimum wage jobs, when they've invested their whole entire lives to save for retirement and build the homes, and that divorce wipes all of that out while he goes on and lives his life and finds the new woman, and he's just fine. 60% of men do far better after divorce than they did while married. Anytime I post these videos here on my channel, I feel intensely the responsibility of the fact that I have a microphone, that I have a voice, that I have people listening, so that I can tell the stories of the other women who cannot. You guys, a man is not a plan. He can be your lover, your boyfriend, your fiance, your husband. He can be whatever you want him to be, but he is not your financial plan. This is not about trad wife life, stay-at-home marriage, family, Americana. This is about adult financial dependency, period. Please read my latest article that just dropped today. Please check out this Substack. Links are all in the description. We have to make a better world for my daughters and for yours.